Hey everyone, welcome back to the Thoughtful Advocate podcast. I'm your host, Elizabeth Teo, and today I wanted to share and really be honest with you about sustainability careers. I feel like people just don't talk enough about it because what the heck is a sustainability career? And I think the fact is not a lot of us have a straight path to get here. The story of a perfect career is very rare. Let's say you graduate with an environmental science degree and you think as soon as you get out of school, you're going to end up in some cushy job, maybe with the government or a major sustainability organization. Not always the case. And that definitely was not my case. I had a rough time, especially in the beginning with my career. I want to talk about it so people don't feel so alone in their career hunt and especially because a lot of my audience is environmentally focused. I know a lot of you are passionate about the environment and want to make an impact. So I'm sure a lot of you thought about going into an environmental career, whether that's environmental sciences or policy. You're probably thinking, how do I even get started? I'm here to tell you your path doesn't have to be perfect. For me, it was definitely an experiment of trying things and seeing if it was for me. Okay, let me take you back to high school. This was my very first paid job that I can remember. And I was incredibly lucky to land this paid job. And honestly, it was through my friend Janelle. She's one of my best friends, and I saw her in August. We've been friends for over 20 years since elementary. And yes, so basically it started, we were in the Boys and Girls Club, and I only did that through her as well. She was pretty involved in volunteer activities, and I honestly was not. My dad had a lot to say about volunteer opportunities. In fact, he even called my teacher to say what a waste of time it was, and it is crazy that we're not getting paid. I do agree that it is crazy that we're not getting paid. But back then, I'm normal, so I was very confused. Anyways, we volunteered at the Boys and Girls Club, and eventually she found the Math Science Leadership Program. They were recruiting students. The program was called Math Science Leadership Program at University of Washington, Tacoma. It was truly amazing. They fed us everything from Subway to Mexican food, but more importantly, they introduced us to different careers in the math, science, and leadership space. And I think what really made it special was a lot of the faculty in this program, they were people of color. That was important because growing up, especially when you're learning chemistry and all these hard sciences, we learned about these white males in lab coat and like Darwin and Newton, Einstein, like how they basically were super geniuses and are now going down in history. But you never hear about the females or people of color that also made their stamp. Later, we find out that a lot of the credit was stolen from people of color, women, because they were not allowed to be in these fields. For the first time, I saw scientists that didn't just look like Einstein, old, white, male. They looked like they could be me. And I think that representation mattered so much because people weren't talking about communities of color and representation as much back then. It definitely wasn't highlighted in the program. It was just like there. People of color were part of the faculty. And so I thought that was very powerful. We didn't get paid internship first. We were first students and loved it so much that we came back a second year. Eventually, we found out they were doing paid internships, applied, and got it. And it was so much fun. We did fundraising for the program. A little nerve-wracking. We had to do fundraising during parent night and speak to parents and make videos. I think it was a great learning opportunity. My boss, which I still connect to this day, we actually saw her the last time I went to Tacoma. She's super nice, and I think it was a very good environment for me to see what it's like working at university and what it's like to be in a healthy job. My first job was pretty good for first job standards. And yeah, some of the free internships, unpaid internships I did was like naturopathy because I was trying to cure my eczema, but that didn't go anywhere. But I always was interested in the health fields. I think that's because that's the only field I thought I could go into. And of course, a lot of that stemmed from my family. Asian families love having a child doctor. Understandably, I thought that was a field for me, even though I wasn't that interested in hard sciences. I did try really hard at them. I've always loved the environmental classes and animal biology classes. Those were so fun. But Never chemistry. I hated chemistry and physics. Biology was okay because like I could memorize things, so I enjoyed that one probably the most. But everything else, not so much. And when I graduated from the University of Toronto with my Bachelor of Science in Physical Environmental Geography, I found I was ready for the world. Like, hey, get a career because U of T is such a prominent school. I was completely wrong. The name definitely did open doors. I feel like I probably got certain opportunities because people recognized the school. The job hunt was still brutal, and I definitely had my fair share of horror stories. So my first environmental job out of U of T, not so much. I applied to this company called Green Ninjas. They were teaching the community how to sort their waste and doing the sorting themselves, which I wasn't as excited about. I'm passionate about waste, and my whole platform is about zero waste. So I might as well apply because I think it's my chance to get my foot in the door. The guy was incredibly demeaning. I would literally leave the job crying. The job would be at different locations because we run events. One of them was at a golf tournament, which is pretty cool, but the day of was not so great. I was living in King City and then driving to Hamilton for that golf tournament. It was over an hour each way, and I was barely making more than minimum wage. And yeah, I was late due to traffic, and I was buried. He would constantly praise one particular employee while telling me I didn't really know anything, and it was very unprofessional and demoralizing. He didn't directly say I was stupid, but it made me feel stupid. It was crazy because when I got another paid internship, my coworker also worked with him more closely because he was paid a lot more for one. And he said that every day he would feel like an idiot. And this guy like really was mean to him. And so I was glad to know that I wasn't the only one experiencing this, but also it was sad. And all in all, yeah, disheartening as my first job out of. And honestly, it taught me an important lesson that not all green jobs are good jobs because of the field you want to be in. It really does depend on your boss and people around you. So I quit as soon as I could. In the end, I did get an apology from him because they basically quit and said, this is how you made me feel, and this is why I'm quitting. And he apologized. It was just too much. And before I continue the story of my environmental career, I want to acknowledge that not all of my jobs were environmentally related. And I think that's okay because you need your foot in the door. Any job that you can get at first is very helpful. For example, while I was at U of T, I worked at Wonderland part-time during the summer. I worked at the bungee jump, the Silver Arch, which is now taken down, and I'm very sad about that because I love the bungee jump. Flying it and test flying it in the morning was so much fun. And yeah, it was one of my most memorable and fun jobs. You could go into the park, like Wonderland, with your employee badge anytime and ride the rides, and that was so much fun. So I love working at amusement parks and entertainment. Those were just fun jobs. I was also a receptionist at dental offices, which I got my first opportunity through a family member who owns a dental office. A lot of people were looking for receptionist-related jobs, so to see that on my resume was very helpful. I worked at an international English camp. They had kids from Vietnam, Mexico, and all over the world. These jobs taught me how to work with difficult people, which I struggled with because I am a big people pleaser, or at least I was. It was very hard for me to say no to people, and disappointing them was very scary because I always thought something bad would happen based on my childhood trauma. If anyone ever yelled at me, I would be so scared and would do whatever they want right away. I learned it was very difficult to work with people. I learned about billing, insurance, scheduling, skills I use in environmental work in some related way that I think most of all, how to get along with people. I don't think I have that issue, but working with difficult people, that's always been hard. So I think that's what these jobs taught me. And yeah, like I said, if you get any part-time job to start with, working at a movie theater or a mall or fast food even, at least you can get your foot in the door and say that, hey, I have experience working with people. I know how to work with a team. I am responsible. I show up on time and do what is needed to be done. I think it's definitely a start, and I don't think it's anything to be ashamed of, especially when you're that young. It's a good place to start, and you can make friends that way. I made a lot of friends in my part-time jobs. So yeah, but I think the real turning point for me was when I started my blog on zero waste, called Zero Waste Cutie. This was during my university education, I think 2017 or something. I started posting about what ways I was trying to reduce my waste, and a lot of people enjoyed it. So I just started posting more and gained more followers. This was my entry point to environmental communications, which I have no formal education in. Environmental nonprofits started hiring me because I put that on my resume. At that time, I had 7,000 followers and eventually went up to 20. I said, hey, I have a blog, X amount of followers, and it's specifically on environmental issues. And at that time, zero waste. So I got a lot of opportunities for that without having a formal education in communication. And I was sharing authentically my passion online. I worked for Toronto Environmental Alliance and some incredible projects. They had this project where they were helping fund high-rises, apartments, and condos in Toronto to get compost chutes. Apparently, having compost option in private high-rises is not a requirement. They did the education and helped them figure out the logistics of how to get a compost chute in. So that way it was an option for people who lived in high-rises. And I think that's such a great idea to reduce waste and food waste specifically, so that doesn't end up in landfill because it takes way longer to decompose and at least it gets turned into soil. It was really inspiring to see change happen. But yeah, honestly, I learned the people who work there are truly incredible, very passionate, and like my boss at the time, she was super helpful because I had depression issues. And so it was hard for me to work, but she was incredibly helpful and gave me a lot of great tips. I don't think that communications was ever going to be my career, but I just kept going down that path because I was like, I'm here. I don't really know where to go. So I just kept chugging along. But yeah, I also learned that just because you're doing a personal blog, it's very different from a corporate blog, which has so many strict rules. And I'm not a person who enjoys very rigid rules like that, especially when I'm so used to writing my own blogs and saying what I want. I honestly felt suffocated. So I didn't really enjoy it. I think maybe if I studied communications, I would have been better at those jobs, but it showed me what I didn't want to do. And I think that's the thing with jobs. You can research as much as you want, but you don't really know what you're getting into until you actually do it. I learned so much when I landed the jobs because then I could see whether I enjoyed it or not. And then in 2019, I saw this internship opportunity at Niagara Region, waste management, as a waste management intern at the material recovery facility, which is basically just a recycling center. I applied immediately, and this was very exciting because I learned how these facilities really work. Real people sort their recycling off conveyor belts before the robotic sorting system takes over. It gave me a completely different idea and understanding of what waste management is. Yeah, I did know a bit about it, shredding paper, but it was cool to see how they separated cans using magnets, and I really did not know that people worked on these lines and hand sorted things. I didn't know all the cool treasures we could find working at these facilities because someone found the Pikachu fact, which is really cool. I found a lot of interesting books that I kept, and yeah, there's so many treasures that you can find at recycling centers and at landfills. So it was a pretty fun job. We did a lot of community outreach. We did the campaigns where we educate the neighborhood. I was literally dressed up as a giant compost bin or recycling bin and do Fortnite dances. This was in front of hundreds of students in elementary school. Was it embarrassing? A little, but I actually really enjoyed it because they can't see your face. So you can just do whatever you want. And they loved the Fortnite dances. I enjoyed that. My boss was super nice. I didn't get to work that closely with her. She was in the main office or at the headquarters, but she was super supportive. From time to time, I still reach out to her. I think that's another thing with working in the industry, build relationships, and it's good to have those. But then came one of my lowest points. I was working as a development coordinator for a fruit picking nonprofit. They would get volunteers to harvest extra fruits and give it to people in need. But it was very difficult for me. It was just me and one other lady, my boss, running this whole thing. In small nonprofits, you learn that you have to do everything. So you have to have 50 hats, even though the job is hiring for one position. And I think that was very difficult for me. I'm better at doing less. Yeah, like doing communications and fundraising and a bunch of other things, organizing volunteers. It was difficult. And honestly, I was so depressed at that time. I had a hard time working. And eventually I got let go because I just couldn't work. I was super depressed. And that was really hard for me. I took a huge toll on my mental health. It was a full-time job. And when I got it, I was super excited because I was like, oh my gosh, it's a full salary for the first time. And comes with insurance. And I was like, yes, I'm finally an adult. But I just couldn't do it. But I learned that my mental health was more important and that communications could not vary. And working at small nonprofit. I did another internship at the town of Newmarket as a waste program assistant. I wasn't really working with other people my age, which was kind of fun, but people there were very nice. I got to know a lot of people in charge of entire programs and different sectors within the town. It was very interesting, but it was lonely. They gave me a truck and I would go around and see if people left items on a curb, like couches or TVs. I would just them letters basically saying that, hey, you can't put this here. It's the Bible and you need to remove this within X number of days. That was most of it. It was cool to see the neighborhoods. I just got positive headaches from the truck I learned from that job. I will not be driving a lot in any of my careers because no, not for me. And I don't think it was very fulfilling either, but I wish I did more work with my boss because she was the one coordinating all of the pickups. They would negotiate for contracts with waste providers. And that was really interesting that we had to start so far. So yeah, I was the one, if there was any issues on the street, I would report back to her and tell her what happened. I discovered the Resource Productivity and Recovery Authority. They're a nonprofit that works with the government to help companies meet recycling targets and follow regulations for batteries, light bulbs, electronics. I visited their office in 2019. I met someone who was working there. She was pretty high up. She was super nice and gave me a tour of the area. But at the time, they were not hiring people who were freshly out of the university. They needed to have more experience. So I was like, okay, it's not my time yet. Eventually, they started hiring more junior positions. It just didn't work out because I was in between jobs and I'm hoping to get a job as soon as possible. Another job accepted my application before they did. But then I applied again and I got it. I've been there for 3 years now. And back then they had a wall made out of recycled tires and so it smelled a bit. It was really cool. And they have pictures of like electronics and it's interesting to learn about the circular economy and the regulations. The public has a lot of questions, but we mostly work with the companies. So, of course, they have questions because they actually are the ones who pay for what they produce. It used to be 50-50. The public would pay like 50%, and then I guess companies would pay 50%. But yeah, the public through taxes. But now it's completely the individual producer responsibility. So, companies now pay for the recycling program in whole. So, of course, they want to know why and how they can follow these rules and what they need to pay. So it's interesting. But yeah, I mostly pick up calls and answer questions. But I think my favorite part of the job is the people there. They're super nice. And I think that's so important for every job is to have people that can support you and that are nice because you don't want to work with weak people. That's really tough. As you probably know, I'm on leave in that current role, but I definitely think it's the closest I've ever been to a career that I ideally thought as a university student. I just never knew these kind of careers are out there because no one talks about them. And unless you're in the waste industry, you just don't know about it. Again, I think with career in sustainability, but the more you look and give things a try, the more you understand what you want. And your eyes will be more open to other opportunities you never heard of because you're actually working in the career. You were actually working in the field and get to know people. So it's definitely interesting. I'm on my 1-year mat leave, and honestly, I'm taking another one. I already told my boss that I'm pregnant again, and I'm very excited because Ace and me, my little brother, I'm fulfilling my dreams of having 2 children and a family, a very full family, which I've always wanted. It is very exciting, but also nerve-wracking because I have to figure out the whole situation. In Canada, you have to make up 600 hours between your last leave, which kind of sucks because I've been working there for 3 years, so doesn't that mean I get 3 years of that leave? But no, it doesn't. Figuring that out, and honestly, they're really flexible, or they have been with me in the past, so we will see. Fingers crossed. That brings me to why I'm here and why we started this podcast, or why I basically wanted to start a podcast. I definitely wanted to build a community of people who care about change because that's such a big one. When people don't know what to do when, times are difficult. And I just want to share my experience because I believe that you can learn through anyone's experiences. And I hope other people will learn from me. And I also have an interview segment where I interview thoughtful advocates around the world. And that's also really fun for me because I get to talk to people as passionate as I am about the environment and what they do. And I think it's very fulfilling and amazing to speak to other people in this field because sometimes you feel alone. For me, to meet other creators in this field is very fun because there are other people out there working toward making a better world. So yeah, I definitely started this podcast because I wanted to provide because I wanted to be that inspiration for other people and to give hope to this world. When you turn on the news, it's very bleak, like stabbing, killings, the world is ending. Like, we don't need more of that, honestly. We need hope and inspiration, and I just hope I can be a part of that. We definitely need all types of people if we're going to make a big change in this world. Grassroots organizers, entertainers, anyone who's inspiring people on the ground, people who go to work. We need everyone and anyone at this point. Here's what I want you to take away from my story. Your past does not have to be perfect. Mine certainly wasn't, and I don't entirely know my future. But I definitely had jobs that made me cry, jobs that were boring, jobs that taught me stuff I didn't want to do. Each of those are valuable experiences that taught me how to stand up for myself because I didn't know how to. Each job teaches you your strengths, your limits, and how to work with people. The sustainability sector in general is relatively new compared to other industries out there, and that means there's room for different paths, new positions that you never heard of, different background, different perspectives. And your journey, whatever it looks like, might be exactly what this field needs. You don't have to have an environmental degree in this field. We need people from all walks of life. It's definitely growing because environmental issues are getting more exacerbated and we need solutions from all sides. So yeah, if you're listening and you don't know where to start, remember, I started with just posting about pictures of my zero waste items. I started with passion, willingness to learn and connect to other people and adapt as well. And sometimes you fail. That's okay. That's part of life. You learn and you live. And your first environmental job might not be your dream job, and that's okay. But it's a stepping stone you need to find that dream job. And it's also okay to just work a job because you need the money. We're all trying to live, eat, and survive. That's okay. I truly believe that the world needs more people who care, who are willing to do the work, and people who bring different skill sets and perspectives to the table. So yeah, thanks for listening to my story, and if you have any suggestions about what else we should talk about in this podcast, love to hear it, who I should interview next. And yeah, your path never has to be perfect, it just has to be yours. Okay, so today's sponsor is Kind Laundry. Just kidding, they're not really a sponsor, but I do have an affiliate code. Kind Laundry use natural ingredients, and it actually comes in these sheets. So much more useful than liquid laundry detergent because that stuff gets messy. With Kind Laundry, you can bring this anywhere. It's literally in a box, pack in your suitcase, and it's that easy. You can get 10% off by using code ZeroWasteCute.